All right. A very, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everyone is well. Karibuni sana. Welcome to the Afriforex Daily Analysis. This 24th day of October 2024. My calendar tells me today is day 298. We do have about 68 days left till the end of the year and about 2 months, exactly 2 months before Christmas. So we still have a bit of time to make some money. Hope you're well. Good to see lots of people here streaming in to our Zoom meeting as well as online on YouTube. Karibuni sana. Hope everyone is well. For the sake of guys who are joining us for the first time, John Bugo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex, like we always say, is a trading unit, so it's not a one-man show. So we also do have Mitch. He is here. He's working in the back office. So as always, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. We'll be getting back to you, but I will be looking at the questions more specifically in the Q&A section, but towards the tail end of this session. So we're going to jump straight into it. So we'll start off, as always, by looking at the watch list. So you can see right there, the 24th of October, what our watch list will be looking like. Couple of changes just on the USD and the Canadian dollar. They've joined the sell side of things. We will see how things end up transpiring on that front, but everything else does end up staying put. So we'll start off by having a brief recap of the ones that we did have yesterday, the kind of pairs that we had yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So we'll start off with the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can't see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere within this region here. And I pointed out that hopefully we did get the market maybe breaking to the downside. Maybe on the pullback, could have gotten some sells, or maybe the market coming back in within here. But unfortunately, it didn't pull back in within that region. It broke to the downside, but came back in much, much later, back within this region right here. But unfortunately, you can't see that the market really struggles coming down. And I mean, even today, you can't see that there's definitely some struggle going on. So it's definitely a currency pair we're not going to be watching out for today. So the next one, the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, we're watching out for sells. These are the three areas I had pointed out. In the morning, price was here. Either price was going to come back in within that region, or maybe we did get a breach and a hold to the downside. Could have been some sells. And you can see that the market pulled back in within this area right here before moving to the downside, still during the London session. But during the US session, you can see that the market was on the pullback phase. So I guess the only sell that was there was this one here, but you possibly did need to read that on a smaller time frame, to definitely end up getting that opportunity. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere within here. And remember, this seller had just started to come down. And I pointed out that we wanted to see what this buyer within here was going to do. So the market came to the downside, but it seems that it came back in within this region, came to the upside, came back in within this region here. And you can see that the market did actually end up making a move from this region somewhere within this area. Although during the US session, that's when the market really came to the downside quite aggressively, in fact, for the big sales. So this one did work out quite well. Unfortunately, I missed out on that one, but definitely was a good currency pair in terms of looking for the sales yesterday. At least the weakness on the Great British Pound did actually end up coming through. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can't see the three areas I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere here. Similar situation. This one was having some good correlation with the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So the market came to the downside. I wanted to see it bounce off this region here, but you can't see that it came just slightly lower within this region, came to the upside, where it pulled back in within that region right there. I did manage to get that sell, and you can see that the sell, of course, it did hit TP within this region here, giving a 1:4. But you can see that the market really came to the downside, possibly giving even all the way till a 1:9, nearly double. I mean, what would have definitely ended up getting, had I held on to that trade. So this was the trade right here. So got the sell somewhere within that region. So I took this screenshot just before closed the trade somewhere down within this region right here. So this one was a good one. So let's see today if we'll possibly end up getting other opportunities elsewhere. Unfortunately, I'm not hanging on to this one. If you still are in any of the currency pairs that we're looking at yesterday that are not on our watch list, as long as you've managed your trade, you should be fine. So as long as you're not looking for more opportunities, you should be good. So the next one, this is Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can't see the three areas that I had pointed out. Remember the yens yesterday were showing a lot of strength. A lot of weakness. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the pullbacks coming in, especially based on what happened during Asia. It was only much later on during the US session, but unfortunately, we just couldn't get the pullbacks coming in within the regions that we're watching out for yesterday. So that one, unfortunately, there wasn't anything. Same case with this one, the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're watching out for buys. The market was rallying up quite aggressively, especially all the way from the Asian session. The pullbacks only started to come in during the US session. Maybe you could find the pullbacks coming in within the strategic areas that we're watching out for yesterday, but unfortunately not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can end up trading. So I guess we can end up looking at a couple of screenshots that we did end up getting yesterday. In fact, we'll start off with the ones that we did have on from Tuesday. Remember yesterday, unfortunately, I couldn't retrieve them, but at least I have them today, so can brush over them real quick. So we'll start off with this one. This one is from Bravin. So shout out to you, Bravin. This is on silver. As always, can't see that you got a buy opportunity on this one, and the market came back in within this region. Stop loss above your point of entry, which is good. And I can see that your take profit was all the way high up within that region. But good to see that in terms of entry and money management, that's really well done. So shout out to you for that, Bravin. We also did get some screenshots from Dan Bickett. So this is on the NAS 100. Can see a bunch of selling opportunities high up within this region, where we definitely do have some sellers. Don't know where you are targeting, but I can see that at least you do have the level set within here. So I guess those are potential areas where you are targeting, and I can see that your stop losses for your trades somewhere within this region right here, which is okay. Quite aggressive entries, but I know that you're a real cowboy on the charts. So shout out to you for that, Dan Beacon, and of course, well done in terms of managing those trades. So the next one is the DAX 40. So I can see that you got a selling opportunity on this one as well, somewhere within there. Stop loss already below your point of entry. Once the market decides to move in your favor, can see that you're targeting down within here. Hopefully, did do some money management here. Can also see that you have a red line within that region there. But of course, in terms of entry money management, that's really good. And also in the NAS 100, can see that you got a buying opportunity here and another one somewhere within there. Stop losses for your trades within that region right there. So shout out to you for that. This is really good, especially in terms of how you manage your trades. Immediately the market starts to move in your favor. So shout out to you for that, Dan Bicker, and of course, keep up the good work. So we also did get some screenshots yesterday from my boy Mitch. Of course, he is here. He's working in the back office. So these ones are from Tuesday. So I can see he got some good sells on this is on the euro against the Australian dollar. So a bunch of selling opportunities there coming down with the market. Can't see that one trade closed there, another one there, and I think the other one down within that region there. So shout out to you for that, Mitch. And also on the euro against the New Zealand dollar coming down. Very good entry right at the top right there, came out within this region exactly just when the market was about to turn to the upside. So this was really good. So shout out to you for that, Mitch, and of course, Dan Bickett and Bravin for those screenshots. So moving on into the ones that we did get now from trades that we did discuss yesterday. So we got this one. This one is on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. This one is from Alvin. So I can see that you got some selling opportunity at the top, somewhere within this region there, which was really good. Exactly at the top, quite a sniper entry, I would say, especially the one at the top right there. And I can see that as the market was coming down, stop losses for your trades within those regions there. So it's good to see that you've incorporated stop losses and money management, which is really good. So shout out to you for that and keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from Beatrice. So Beatrice, if you're here, shout out to you. This is on oil. So I can see you got a handful of selling opportunities as the market was coming down. Can't that your take profit was down here, stop losses for your trades, all your trades, I'm thinking maybe somewhere within this region here, which is okay. Hopefully you did get all the way down to within that region, but of course, especially the entries at the top, especially the one at the extreme top, that was a really, really good one. So shout out to you for that and keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from Claire. Claire, if you're here, shout out to you as well. So this is on the Great British Pound against the US dollar. Almost looks similar to the trade that I took, but it's good to see that you got it just before the market really started to come to the downside. And I can see that you did come out somewhere within that region at the bottom right there. So this is some really good trading. So keep up the good work. And last but not least, we did get a screenshot from Peter. Peter, if you're here, shout out to you as well. So this is also on the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So I can see that you got the sell somewhere within this area right here. And I can see that your stop loss, immediately the market started to move to the downside. At least you brought it just above these sellers who are pushing down, which is okay. And I can see that you take profit was all the way down within this region here. So that's some good trading as well. So shout out to Peter, Beatrice, Claire, and Alvin for those screenshots. So remember, guys, if you do manage to get any screenshots, feel free to send them in to us. I'm sure most of you do have our contact details by now, but of course, you can also find them on our website, but also I think they can be placed there on our chat box. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we did have yesterday and also in terms of the screenshots. So I guess we can end up shifting gears into matters today. So for the sake of guys who've checked in a bit late, this is what our watch list is going to be looking like today. So let's see what happens in terms of the economic calendar. There's a bunch of news events that are going to be coming out today, especially to do with the euros and the GBPs during the London session. So we'll see what happens. In case there are any changes, then we'll definitely let you know on the Telegram channel. And also you can see a couple of USDs that are going to be coming out. Of course, the initial jobless claims that normally come out every Thursday. As always, we'll be expecting that and a couple of PMIs. So I guess we will see some good moves. We should expect some moves on the charts today. So let's get started with the AUD pairs. We'll mix and match them up with everything on the south side. Then move on to the CHF pairs, then the NZDs, then finish off with the indices and the commodities as always. So the first one is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Clearly can't see the three areas that I had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative. The levels are going to be the same today. So in the morning, price was somewhere within, let's see, somewhere within this region right here. So at around 9:10. You can see that the market came back in within there. There was some sort of a reaction by the sellers, but you can see that the buyers still came back in within this region. Unfortunately, we couldn't get anything within there to tell us to look for the sells. Neither could we get anything within this area right here. So for this one for today, you can see that the market has turned around, which is good, which means that these sellers who are sitting within this region right here are possibly starting to come back into the market. So we will be waiting to see whether we can get, hopefully, the market coming back in within this region here. If it does, I think there could be a good selling opportunity. You could manage within there, possibly target all the way at the bottom. There's some sort of an SNR within this region here. So I wouldn't really advise you to end up looking for the sells right now, because you could be selling with buyers within that region. There's a minus SNR within this area. You can see that the market has reacted before. Hopefully it reacts again and we get the market somewhere as close as possible within here. I think some very good selling opportunities could be coming in within that region at the top right there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But of course, remember, if it does break above, or the price does break above this region to the upside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. You can see that there's some sort of a range that the market has started to form within this region, which means that if we do get sells high up within here, you could literally come down with, those sells all the way to the bottom of the range, just playing within the structure that the market has formed within this region. Of course, if it breaks above here, then at that point in time, we're out of the range. So there's really no point looking for the selling opportunities after that. So bear that in mind. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sells. In the morning, price was here. So we wanted to see either the market break to the downside of this region for us to look for sells, or maybe come back in within this area right here You can't see that it broke to the upside. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it holding to the downside and even coming back into the downside of this region. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen yesterday. So it's only towards the end of yesterday, that's when the market came to the downside. So there's a possibility we still could find the market coming back in within this region here. So I think when you possibly see the euro against the Australian dollar pulling back, also have a look at this one, because there's a possibility. What we could find is that during the London session, because you can see that we're approaching the London session at around 10, price could literally pull back in within this region, maybe during the London session. Then maybe, at around 3, 4:30, you could find the market within this region. And you possibly could find that the proper sell might end up happening off this region here. So that's one possibility. And I really hope that's the one that, or the option that the market gives us. The other option could be, of course, if the market breaks to the downside of this area, then you can also wait for the pullback within this region here. But you need to wait and see that you can visually see that the market has broken to the downside and is literally holding to the downside of that area. You can see that the market had attempted to come to the downside, but did end up going to the back to the upside of this region here. So that means that there are definitely some buyers sitting here. And it's definitely these buyers who are giving issues. You can see that yesterday they pushed the market to the upside. So unless we clear this region to the downside, don't end up looking for sells. You could easily find yourself in a tricky situation. So watch out for that. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. Here you can see the 3 areas that I had pointed out yesterday. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative, somewhere in the middle, right here. So in the morning, price was here. And remember, I pointed out also this SNR right here. And I pointed out, if you get buys here and you can't get the market blasting above this region to the upside, you're better off closing. And you can clearly see that the market just held within this region here. But I had pointed out that hopefully we could have gotten the market coming back in within this region right here. And it did during the US session. But you can see that during the Asian session, after it broke to the upside, it's coming back into retest within this region here. So for this one, it's quite a good one, I would say. So, I mean, you can see that the buyers are definitely active within this region here. And it's these buyers who are here, because you can see the sellers came down aggressively, the buyers pushed to the upside. Let's see what happens within here. You could find a very good buying opportunity, especially during the London session, but you also can watch out on a smaller time frame just to see the story of what's going on within here. But I think this one is going to be a good one. So could literally find that there are about 38, nearly 40 pips that could be up for grabs on this one. So let's see what happens. Hopefully that strength comes in first during the London session, because that's where we're approaching. You could find that maybe the market might lift to the upside. I mean, if you're going to be hitting buys here, if let's say you're not really that good in terms of, in terms of your trading, then the best area you can put your stop loss is all the way down here. But you see now the risk to reward ends up being a bit of a tricky situation. What you could do is, let's say if the market attempts to come to the downside, because there's a possibility it might, if it comes back to the upside and actually holds within here, at least you can also end up being a bit of a sniper, possibly bring your stop loss a bit higher up. And you can see that ends up increasing your risk to reward. So you can possibly end up having a look at that to try to see what happens, because there's a possibility based on how these sellers are coming in, they might attempt to end up maybe coming back in within this region. So you could possibly end up waiting for that, because if you put your stop loss all the way down here, it's not bad. But remember that also in case the market breaks and starts to hold within this region right here, then you're also not safe. Maybe at that point in time, you could possibly also end up scratching your trade, because there's a high probability price might just be coming back in within this region here. So watch out for that. Remember the red SNR at the bottom. Of course, in case the market goes all the way down within that region and breaks that region to the downside, then unfortunately, there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. We will be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the 3 areas we will be watching out for. Can see that the market came down quite aggressively yesterday. For pretty much the whole of yesterday, the market seems to be doing some sort of a turnaround here, but we're also expecting that to happen based on the fact that we're expecting hopefully weakness should be coming in on the Canadian dollar pairs. There were some interest rate decisions that came out yesterday. They didn't really do much. Would have expected maybe some sort of fireworks, especially on the Canadian dollar pairs. Unfortunately, that didn't really end up doing much. But generally, we're expecting weakness. So we'll wait and see what happens today, hopefully on this one. So let's see what happens. Maybe you could find the market coming back in once again within this region here. There's a possibility it can. And if that happens, then you could find some proper buys within this region. But alternatively, the other buys that we could possibly end up getting if the market breaks above this region to the upside, because it needs to clear this region right here. You could technically look for buys coming up. Let's say if it breaks within this area right here, but there's a major scenario within this region. So you could easily find yourself bouncing between these two regions right here. So that's why it's better to possibly end up waiting to clear both regions. Then at least on this side, your buying opportunities will definitely end up working out a bit much more smoother. So just watch out for that. And alternatively, the best other buy could be down within this region right here. You could find the market coming back in during the London session, during the US session, maybe picking up to the upside. So also watch out for that. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. So this one is almost similar to the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar to some extent. But you can't see that this one has already come in to tap in within this region. It's cleared this region right here. And you can't see that it's gone up, pulled back in within here, but you can also end up getting into some sort of a squeeze. It's almost similar to what we've seen on the other one. So generally, if we clear this region to the upside, I think you should be safe, especially if we get the market, holding to the upside. This buy is definitely going to be a bit much more easier than attempting to break this region to the upside, because you could easily end up getting sent back all the way to this area right here. So just make sure that you have that in mind. So that's pretty much it in terms of the AUDs. So we've mixed and matched everything up against the Australian dollar that's on the sell side. So right now we're going to move on to the next ones, which are the Swiss franc pairs, and do the same. So we'll start off with the euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was here. So it was either price comes back in within here, or maybe breaks to the downside, pulls back in within here, then we could get a sell, which did to some extent end up happening. Unfortunately, I missed out on a sell within here. The pullback just couldn't come back in all the way till within that area there. But you can see that the sells or the sellers did come through during the London session. Then during the US session, the market was pretty much doing nothing. And of course, moving into the Asian session as well, there's a lot of inactivity on this one. So we will be waiting to see what happens on this one. Hopefully, either we get the pullback happening and we get the buyers reacting, and hopefully price coming back in within this region, especially after it broke to the downside and it didn't retest that region. There's a high probability price might be coming back in within this area right here. But right now, in terms of looking for the sells, I would not do that. Maybe unless the market breaks beneath this region to the downside on the pullback, then maybe we could look for the sells. Because right now, you can't quite tell what the big boys are up to. So we'll just have to end up waiting and giving it a bit of time to see what happens on that one. So the next one is a Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're watching out for sells as well. Can't clearly see the three regions that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere within this area here. So it was either these buyers were going to react and got price somewhere within there, or maybe if the market broke to the downside of this area and held, we could have looked for the sells. You can see that this one did actually end up coming in quite aggressive. You can see a sign of the big sellers, with this move coming down. But on the pullback, unfortunately, we couldn't get the market coming back in, all the way to within here. So even this one, I also did end up missing out on it by a couple of pips, within this region here. But you can see something similar with what we've seen with the rest of the GBPs based on that weakness that was coming in yesterday. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative there. It's somehow similar to the euro against the Swiss franc, because you can't see the inactivity that's happening within here. So hopefully we will get the market maybe coming back in within here. At least if the buyers can struggle coming up during the London session, and hopefully price is somewhere within there during the US session, then I think we possibly could get some good selling opportunities within that region there. So watch out for that. The red SNR is a bit of a long shot, but also have that in mind, just in case the market shows up within that region, then at least you should be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. And this one, it looks similar to the rest of the yens that we've looked at. So you can see the three regions I had pointed out. Price was somewhere here. We couldn't get the pullback coming in. The market just continued to rally up. Seems like the yen pairs were showing a lot of weakness during the London session. And you can see that somewhere within this area here, the market found some sort of resistance. And it did actually end up turning to the downside. And at least you can see we have gotten some sort of a pullback that's coming in on this one. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So let's see what happens within that area. Hopefully the big boys are going to be interested, with this price right here, and we possibly could get the market lifting to the upside. So let's see if we can get a sign of the big boy buyers coming in. Right now, you can see that the sellers are still quite adamant. I mean, if you look at how the buyers are pushed up within this area and they've been shut down with one candle by these sellers within here, it still means that the sellers are still there. So there's a possibility you could find that maybe the sellers might make an attempt, to break beneath this region to the downside. And maybe those buyers within there might actually end up reacting. And if they do, and the market holds within that region, I think we get something like that. Possibly, I think we could be getting ready for some buying opportunities. So just make sure you watch out for that. Also remember the red SNR at the bottom. I mean, if the sellers just don't want to give up and they want to push the market a bit lower, then maybe buying opportunities might actually end up working off that red SNR at the bottom. So make sure that you watch out for that. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be watching out for sales. It's a new entrant on our watch list. So aggressive sales right there, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. The market came to the downside, pulled back in within here. There's definitely an SNR within this area here. The only problem that we do have is that the sellers are just not yet quite there. If you look at the previous time, or the previous 3 times when the market has been here, the first time price came down till within this region right here. And you can see that the sellers were quite in the game at that point. The next time the ball was thrown back in their court, they only did this much. They couldn't come in as low as this. And you can see that the next time when the market has come in here, they're even showing much more weakness than the other 2 times. So that means that there's a possibility that the market could literally end up spiking to the upside. Maybe it might need to get more sellers within that area right there, maybe to come into the game, before the market actually ends up making a move. So for this one, let's see what happens. But also remember that the market can also come up back within this region right here. But the bias generally is to try to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. So let's see what happens. But I predict there's a possibility there could be a spike that might happen within here, maybe to get some sort of a tiebreaker and also incite those more and more buyers to come in. When the market breaks to the upside, definitely more guys are going to be looking for the buys. Then when the sellers do end up getting enough liquidity and the big boys, that's when you possibly find the market making a move. And that could be the tiebreaker, that's needed to possibly end up getting those sales moving. So let's see what happens on that one. So the next one and the last CHF pair, this is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. So we will be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. So this one is also not very bad, considering the fact that the market, if you end up looking at how the market has been coming up, this is good. It's been in some sort of a channel, also getting tired, started to get into some sort of a range within this region here. Can't see that the buyers attempted to break to the upside. The sellers did end up shutting them down. The market came back in, held within here during the Asian session. But the only problem is that the way the sellers are coming down, these are not the big sellers. So I guess the big boys are not yet in, which means that there's a possibility the market could be coming back in within that region there. And if it does, then I think possibly you could get some good selling opportunities somewhere within this region here. You could target down here or maybe even lower. But just make sure that you watch out for this region right here. Definitely could run into the opposite part. You can see that yesterday, the buyers who pushed the market to the upside are sitting within here. So you can't ignore that area, you could easily end up getting sent back home. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But remember that in case the market breaks and holds above here, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us, because I mean, you're not just sure whether the buyers are going to continue pushing the market to the upside, because it's also been coming up for some period of time. I think over the last 1 month or so, you can see that the market has been coming up. So if it breaks above here, then I guess you could easily find that the market could continue moving to the upside, and you definitely do not want to be jumping on selling opportunities at that point in time. And also in terms of buys, I mean, if you have a good reason as to why you should be looking for the buys, then by all means, you can end up going for them. But unfortunately for us, that's where we end up calling it quits in terms of looking for opportunities on the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So that's pretty much it for the CHF pairs. So we're going to move on to the last set of currency pairs, which are the NZD pairs. Mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was here. So I was expecting maybe price coming back to the upside, coming back in, then hopefully looking for sells. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The market did come in, broke this region right here and continued to rally up. So there was nothing to tell us to look for sells there. And you can see that within this region, unfortunately, we also couldn't get anything. No sign of any big seller, to tell us that we possibly could look for the sells, and the market broke to the upside, held above here. But you can see that today during the Asian session and also during the Frankfurt session, it seems that the market has come back into the downside. So for this one, we're still going to be watching out for sells, but we have adjusted the levels accordingly. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So don't chase the sells right now, because we're just approaching this region here. You're not too sure whether the market is going to bounce off this area right here. You could find the market back within this region here. You're better off waiting. If we can get this market breaking to the downside of this area and we do hold, then I think you could possibly end up looking for yourselves on the other side of this region here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And of course, remember, in case the market comes back within this region and breaks this red scenario and holds to the upside, then unfortunately for us at that point in time, there will be no trade for us on that one. So let's hope we get a pullback on that one. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're watching out for sells. Unfortunately, this one did end up working out in terms of sells yesterday, like we saw in the rest of the GBPs, because I think also the New Zealand dollar yesterday was showing a lot more weakness. And you can't see that's the reason why this one went up when the rest of the GBPs were coming down. So we're expecting maybe price was going to come back in within here. And you can see that it came down within here, bounced off that region, came to the upside, but unfortunately there was nothing to tell us to look for sells within that region at the top there. So today the market has started pulling back in. Hopefully we'll end up getting that NZD strength coming in on this one. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So right now the market has attempted to break the downside, but the breach is not yet fully confirmed, because you can see that the market is just holding within here. There's a possibility if price comes back to the upside of this region here and actually holds, then there's a possibility I think we might just be coming back in within this area. And I think the best sells could more or less be somewhere within this region here. So just make sure that you watch out for that, because when the market broke this region to the downside, you can see that it didn't quite retest back in within this area. It's almost something similar to I think the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So you could easily find that, the market could possibly come back in within that area. If it does, then at least you should be ready for that. But also remember, in case it breaks and holds above that region, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So if I just go back to a time like this yesterday, price was here. So we wanted to see the market break and hold above, but you can see that the breach and the hold were just within more or less the same area. We couldn't get the market at least moving away, coming back in for us to get a proper buy. So this one was a bit choppy, and you can see that the market came back in all the way till within this area right here. It was an area where we were expecting price to come back, because when it broke to the upside, it never pulled back in within that region. Did some sort of a probe. Guess these buyers within this region here are still more or less in control. And you can see that they pushed the sellers, back to the upside, even if they're coming quite aggressively and the market is holding within this area. So this one is almost similar to, I think, was it the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen to some extent, where you can't see that the market has come back in. It's literally holding within this area right here. So you possibly could find that maybe if the market comes in within this area, you possibly could end up getting some buying opportunities, within that area. Maybe using these buyers within here, some sort of a safety net, and you possibly could get the market coming up within that region. At least this one is not too bad. Can't see that the risk to reward is about 1:2.32, which is not too bad. I think on this one, I think it was a bit tighter than that, and we did need to see maybe the market spiking within here. But also for this one, bear in mind that there's also a possibility, based on how the sellers are coming in and the buyers really haven't showed up, there's also a possibility on this one, the market might literally end up coming back to the downside. At least if you end up waiting for that before you end up executing your buy, then I think you will be safe on this one. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market comes back within that region, then possibly you could find some more buying opportunities or better buying opportunities within there. But you will need to read the story of what happens, especially when price comes back in within there. And if it breaks and holds to the downside of that red SNR, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we're watching out for buys. The market is already moving up. That's not good for us. We do need to see some sort of a pullback. So you can see that there's an SNR within here. You're not quite sure how the sellers within this area are going to react. And I think this one is also similar to the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar, what we discussed. So it's either the market breaks and holds above here, maybe even some attempts to break to the downside, which end up being unsuccessful. Then I think you could look for your buys at that point in time, because you don't want to look for buys within here. You could get squeezed within that area. Alternatively, you could get the market coming back in within here, and you could get some proper buys, happening off this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for those two scenarios there. And last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list, and we will be watching out to see whether we can get some buys. Similar situation with the other one. So I guess we need to see the market either break and hold above here, for us to look for the buys, but give these sellers the benefit of doubt. You could find that during the London session, the market might just be on the pullback phase, coming back in within this region, before we actually end up getting some buying opportunities happening. So just make sure that you do watch out for those two scenarios right there. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So we've mixed and matched up everything on the buy side versus everything on the sell side. So right now we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. Move on to the Dow Jones, then silver and gold. So for the NAS 100, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative. Here, for as long as we're holding beneath this region to the downside, the bias was to look for selling opportunities. I was expecting, hopefully, we're going to get maybe the market just inciting the buyers before the market started to move to the downside. But you can see that they started off very slowly within this region here. Then during the US session, they started to pick up a bit more steam, and the market just continued moving to the downside. So for this one, we're still going to be watching out for sells. You can see the levels are more or less the same. I know some of you may be wondering why that's the case, considering the fact that the market came down within here. But if we were to look at the story on a bigger time frame, one thing you'll end up realizing is that the market is actually in a range within this region here. So there was a massive probe that happened to the downside within here. In fact, I think if I go to the one, I think it will end up even being much more clear. So you can see that we're ranging and we're bouncing off this region here and this region here. The fact that the market just came to the downside, then came back in and seems to be holding within here, it means that we're still back in the range, which means if that's the case and the sellers were really incited with this move coming down, we could technically find the market coming back in within this region right here, because we're still more or less within that structure. So we can't ignore that. So if the market does actually end up breaking, let's say to the downside of this region here, and actually holds beneath, you could technically look for more selling opportunities coming down, but you'll have to watch out for, let's say, for example, somewhere within this area here, because it looks like maybe to some extent there's some sort of an SNR within this area that has been giving issues. So that's definitely going to be the next area where you will have to watch out for. But right now, what you could find is that the buyers within this region, because the market has come in within this area quite aggressively, and we've seen that the buyers are actually able to push the market back to the upside within here. And we can't ignore the fact that this is definitely some sort of a big buyer. In any case, even if the sellers came down aggressively, and those are the big boys, there's definitely someone who's pushing back against the big boys within this region here. So we can't ignore that fact right there. So for this one, let's see what happens. So the levels are the same. You technically could find that during the London session, the market could be on the pullback coming up. I mean, if you get a good buying opportunity, you definitely can end up attempting those buying opportunities. It's not a guarantee that, the price will end up getting all the way till within this region here. So there's also this area right here that possibly could end up getting the market turning off, or at least, like I pointed out, if we can end up getting the sellers coming in and we get the market really struggling within this region right here, you could possibly end up looking for sales. Could target down here, but maybe just watch out for this region somewhere within here. Could possibly end up just coming in for some sort of a retest within here, and you could find the market bouncing to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of the NAS 100. So the next one, which is the Dow Jones or the US 30 or the WS 30 on MT5. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. So you can see the three regions that I had pointed out, and also illustrations of what we're expecting. So it was either the market to come back in within here for us to look for sales, or at least if the market came down and you got sales within this region for whatever reasons, you did need to watch out for this area right here. The market came down quite slowly, broke this region to the downside, pulled back in and actually held within here. And you can see that on the pullback, after the market tapped within this area, even an attempt to break to the upside before the market started to come down. Although you did need to read this whole activity maybe on a smaller time frame, it wasn't quite visible on the 15-minute time frame. So for this one for today, the bus is still to look for sales. So these are the three areas we will be waiting to see whether we can get pullbacks, and also regions where we can end up managing our trades. So right now we are smack in the middle of nowhere. So I would best suggest either the market comes back in within this region here, and possibly I think some good selling opportunities might be happening off here. Could find some spikes or some spike maybe happening within here, maybe to incite and maybe possibly even maybe end up attempting to take out these sellers who are sitting there. And you could find that maybe when the market comes back to the downside, I think maybe a good sell could be coming in, and you could find these sellers who came down might attempt to break the previous record, which is somewhere within this region or somewhere within here. So watch out for that. But of course, also watch out for the region at the top. I mean, if this price is not good enough, then you could find the market coming back in a bit higher all the way to within this area. So watch out for that. Of course, if it does break beneath this region to the downside of the pullback, you can also end up looking for more conservative selling opportunities at that point in time. So the next one, this is silver. So for silver yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities, and price was somewhere within this region here. And I had pointed out that hopefully we're going to get price coming back in within here. It did come back in quite aggressive. Unfortunately, the buyers within here had nothing to say about it. And you can see that they were taken out. The market came down all the way till within this region here. And at least the buyers within this region were able to contain the sellers. And you can see that the market has started to move to the upside. So for this one, there were no buying opportunities yesterday. Seems that the buyers were just not in the game yesterday. But today it seems like possibly they could end up coming back. Don't look for buying opportunities right now. The market is more or less within, a region of resistance. So wait until either we get the market breaking above this region, and hopefully we get a nice strong breach, on the pullback. You definitely can end up looking for your buying opportunity, but give this region the benefit of doubt, because alternatively, during the London session, you could find the market possibly reacting on this area right here. You could find the market coming back in, within this region here, possibly end up giving you a proper buying opportunity, especially after these sellers came down aggressively yesterday. Maybe they might just attempt, to come down again. If they can't, they'll definitely need a much better price, and that's when you'll find the market turning to the upside. So just make sure you watch out for that. But remember, when it comes to the indices and the commodities, which is the NAS 100, the Dow Jones, silver and gold, we're fully technical on them. So for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, we should be looking for buying opportunities. If we break beneath and hold below the red SNR, then at that point in time, you can start looking for selling opportunities. So just make sure that you watch out for that. So last but not least, we do have gold. Like Mitch loves to call it, the fan favorite. But I know this one is the one that has sent the most number of people home based on statistics. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can't really see the 3 areas that I had pointed out, which also end up being the same areas for today. So yesterday price was here. I had pointed out, let's see if in case the sellers do actually end up breaking this region to the downside, can we get a hold above here? But you can't see that the market just came back in, held within here. When it broke to the downside, we couldn't get the buyers activating, within this region here. Price came down. Unfortunately, they had nothing to say about the sellers coming in within this area right here, but at least within this region here, you can see that the market did actually end up turning to the upside. So for this one, it seems like it's breaking to the upside, but I would suggest maybe wait and see what happens. Even if the market goes up a bit higher, don't feel bad about missing out on this buy. I mean, it's okay. Trades will always be there. This is not the last trade in the world. So just need to be a bit patient for the market to set itself up. And hopefully we do get the market coming back in within here. You possibly could find a very good buy, working off this area here. Alternatively, the market could bounce off this area here, come and hold to the downside of this area. If that happens, then there's a high probability we will be coming back in within this region here. So you also can end up watching out for that. And possibly you could find that maybe at 4:30, maybe price might just be back in within here for a proper buy to actually end up happening on this one. So make sure that you watch out for that. Although the sellers came down quite aggressive, if you look at what happened yesterday, in fact, let me even just go up the 4-hour time frame. If you look at what happened, these are definitely some big sellers who are coming in. So let's see what happens. Maybe we could find the market turning around, especially if the buyers can't end up breaking above this region. Maybe we could find some sort of a pullback coming in. But, I'm just thinking ahead what might possibly end up happening. But at least the one thing we do know is that for as long as we're holding above this red SNR right here, the bias is still to look for buying opportunities, but there could be a possibility based on how these sellers came in. Maybe there's a possibility we could be getting a turnaround coming real soon, maybe next week or something of the sort. But let's just wait and see what ends up happening on this one. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. So hopefully you have taken note of everything we've discussed. So once again, there's the watch list. If you missed out on anything, also remember you can rewatch this broadcast on our YouTube channel. And also remember to give us a like and a subscribe when you're there. So moving on into the Q&A section. So I see Hudson, good to see you there, saying hi. Just a quick one. Is November and December tradable months or rangy since they are the last months of the year? I think they're still tradable, whether or not they end up being rangy or not. The good thing about it is opportunities will still be there. I mean, there are people who trade the whole year, all the way till even during the Christmas season. It's just the markets will end up being closed maybe on Christmas and New Year and Boxing Day, but you find that there are guys who are trading throughout. The only thing about it is, just like you're pointing out, things might end up becoming a bit rangy because also the big boys have pulled out of the markets. And remember, they're the ones who normally make the markets move. So when they're out, then it means that the markets are more or less on some sort of a neutral gear. So you'll find the markets ranging. But even if the markets are ranging, you'll still find opportunities. And that's the beauty of it. So I mean, if the market is ranging, you can always find buys at the bottom of ranges. You can always get sells, at the top of ranges. So you'll definitely find opportunities. November is not a bad month. December is when things really slow down extremely. So that means that when you take trades, you also need to be very patient. They might not end up working out as quickly as they normally do on regular times when it's not during that Christmas period. But definitely opportunities are still there. So you still can end up getting them. So don't be afraid not to end up taking opportunities. But that's a good one. Hudson. So I hope that answers your question. So I guess that's pretty much it from my end. Not really seeing anything more, which is perfectly fine. We also need to get ready to jump in onto the charts. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. And I see Hudson, you're saying thanks, karibu sana. Yeah, so I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. in the morning. Remember, if you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us. We'll be more than happy to see what you're up to. And also, if you're struggling, also feel free to reach out to us. We'll see how best we can end up helping you. So with that, happy trading, guys. Bye for now. With the peeps be with you. God bless.